Hi, I'm Geerges. When the U.S. left Iraq in 2011, the country descended into sectarian violence, bombings, and kidnappings. The movie Nowhere to Hide follows an Iraqi male nurse for 5 years after the troop pullout.
تشوفها رصاصة سارة.
Welcome to the Geerges Show. Nouri, a father of 4, worked as a trauma nurse in an area called the Triangle of Death. It's an area of Iraq known to be even more dangerous than the rest of the country. A filmmaker taught Nouri how to film his experiences treating the victims of war. But as the violence wore on, he himself became a victim and had to flee his home. The film is called Nowhere to Hide, and the director and writer is Zaradesht Ahmed. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So how did you meet Nouri and decide to have him as the subject for this film?
Then we have to go back to 2010. I was working for an organization, a health organization, based in Iraq and Afghanistan and Cambodia and like all those places where there were conflicts, together with a doctor, war surgeon, Dr. called Hans Husum. And I invited to work with them to Iraq. Already they have established solid network of medics. They worked with trauma people, mine victims and explosion victims. So through that organization, I got to know Nouri and 12 medic, documenting from the areas that call no-go zone, which is literally you cannot go there even though you are, like me, I'm Iraqi Kurd, or even people from not that area cannot go in, like everybody.
Why
knows.
not?
The Diyala province, it's one of the most affected by the violence. It's been all the time. Al-Qaeda was there all the time. American did very bad in that area, so they could not survive it, literally. It's a lot of palm tree. The topography is very hard. There are a mixture of Sunni, Shia, Muslims, Turkmen, and also the majority Arab Kurds are living there, different tribes. So it's always been a little bit difficult to cope with this area. So the best way for us was to get access to the first man informant, which was through these medics, because they were in direct contact every day, and they were the first one going onto the scene where this was a car bomb or explosion or it was assassination, stuff like that. So Nouri Sharif was one of those 12 candidates that I picked and went further, but of course the story was different than all the others after 3 years of following the cases. So and when ISIS came in, the situation totally changed and he became the main character in the film.
And became worse because he had to flee. So I was going to ask you, why didn't you just film it yourself? Because in this movie, you teach Nouri, okay, this is rudimentary how we film movies or do documentaries. So is it because it was too dangerous for you to be there, so you had to give the cameras to him and say, you do it?
Yeah, I did a lot of filming with all of them. But in our case, in Iraq and now in Syria, maybe Libya, maybe Egypt, working with local people, you may, as a filmmaker, put their life in danger.
Because you're attracting too much attention.
Of course, particularly in Iraq, probably in Syria now, wherever you stand, you are enemy to most of the other people, the other tribes, the other sects. So if you're Sunni, filming as a Sunni, you may be making too much attention to yourself, and then right away it's very easy to be stamped as a spy, as a trigger, as somebody who wants something bad, like has a bad intention.
هذا البيت هم يسوي لي هاي العربان شوي بجرب. هاي هنا اسمها كان قاعد هنا ألف متفرع
مال المدرسة كانت مزبيط ما هو سوي بنبقى هنا يمكن 5 أيام.
The film starts with the news of the troop pullout. This is the American troops pulling out, and everyone is happy. They feel this is their independence, and of course that happiness doesn't last. When the violence starts, Nouri says this. He says, quote, "The war now is more dangerous than the American war. The Americans had tanks. They were visible. You could hide from them. Now the danger is everywhere."
Exactly.
What did he mean?
He mean in the beginning we went. It was not about Nouri, the film. It was about us. I wanted to document the war in Iraq. The war in Iraq was totally different than any other war that you experience up to Balkan War. Like, this is faceless army. You know, if you go to Iraq, nobody know who are these people. Nobody know who's the funder. You can track back to 2 or 3 leads. After that, it's nothing, nothing there. You cannot get.
You don't know who's
No.
an enemy, who's a friend.
Who's a friend, who's enemy, who's funding this war, why, what they want, what's the strategy of it. So it's like, and these armies are a cross-border army. You know, they go. There are no country. If you go back to Iraq, who's responsible for this war? Nobody. Like,
is that
no
where
one
the
can.
title comes from? Nowhere to hide?
Yeah,
That he
in the
just felt like he didn't understand like where is safe and where's not safe?
Yeah, in the beginning we had that. We had that like the film crew and the idea of this is a war, you cannot hide from it. The more we were filming, the more we were involved in the situation, the more Nouri became more central in the film. And unfortunately, his town was in 2013-14 was surrounded by ISIS, and then they took over. So he fled before he captured. They captured him. Luckily, they couldn't, and then he fled. So that part of the film became nowhere to hide when they don't have any place to hide anymore. So in the beginning, we didn't want to change the idea of the title of the film because it was also nowhere to hide, you know.
You know what was interesting is that we never find out if Nouri is Sunni or Shia. Did you intend that?
Of course, also no political in the film, you know, like for me, there are two main reasons. One of it, it's if you want to make a film about Iraq, because everybody suffer in Iraq. So, and Nouri, he's a medic, he's not a Sunni. He's a guy going to a hospital, meeting all kinds of people. So it's more, this is the job that he's doing, this is what he is. He's not a Sunni, he's an Iraqi. He's a healthcare personnel. So, and the other thing, thinking about his safety, not putting him in Shia Sunni conflict, because the film is not about that.
Yeah. So there's a scene in the movie where a guy had his car exploded by something called a sticky bomb. And luckily he checks for bombs before getting into his car and he was spared. First of all, what's a sticky bomb?
During 2012, it was very trendy, ironically. Sticky bomb targeting individuals, cars, motorbikes, even the entrance to a door. That was meant for people who work with the new government, register going to join the new police forces, new army, and even teachers, even activists, even that. So that was very effective, efficient way of assassinate people
and terrorizing them.
Terrorizing them.
It's the size of a cell phone.
It's can be different, you know, but the biggest one is the size of an iPhone now, or even less. If you want to damage really, so you put a big one, then you kill the guy and the family as well. It's a terrible thing, but
what a life that you have to check your car before getting into it. Like, that's not something we would think about.
He was lucky. The guy was lucky because I think he's an officer working somewhere, He know about it, that there is they will take him down sometime. So he had as a routine, he check. But lots of, if you remember the film in the beginning, we interview a family father who has one leg and then the other one dysfunctioned. He's the victim of, he's a civilian, he's not a military, he's just a crime guy, he's moving cars. But because he was Shia and Al-Qaeda wanted to take him, first they shoot him, scare him to death, to leave. And he don't leave, and then they put a sticky bomb to him. So he lost
his leg.
سيارة واحدة من العوائل اللي هربت من مدينة السعدية وقعت بخط التماس وتعرضوا لعدة إطلاقات نارية وراح ضحية هذه الإطلاقات النارية طفلة بعمر الورد وأنا شلتها بيدي من منطقة اللي هربوا لها للمستشفى. السلام عليكم. ورحمة الله.
There were some really sad stories, like kids being kidnapped on their way to school and then beheaded, and then their parents find their heads. I mean, it's gruesome beyond belief. Who was doing that?
The same question we ask all the time, who was doing that? I don't know. Mostly, if you think about it, I would rather ask why they do that.
Why?
The who is not a problem, you know, the who is not the problem in itself. Because you can hire people. Iraq becoming like a, you know, going through Iran-Iraq war, and there's already a lot of killers in the free going, and then the regime was very brutal. They have also lots of killing machines within the system. They are
so
free.
Then tell us why. Why would they do that?
I think that's the thing, destabilizing the country to bring it to a level of functioning, still functioning, but not to have this attachment to it. Like Iraqis are, if you go back before like in 90s and 80s and 70s, Iraqis were very proud of their country. And now go back to Middle East, you know, just talk to people, look at TV. Millions are leaving. Millions don't know what to do, where to go. And the last thing their heart burned for is Iraq or is Syria or whatever, because the habitat is in danger. They don't have a stable life, they don't have a safe life. So being in Iraq or being in Syria or whatever in these countries don't mean too much to them, except from misery, unsafety and instability. So
and loss and tragedy.
And that's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Well, remind us what was happening politically in Iraq during this time.
During the time of the film?
Yes, the 5 years of the film.
Yeah, politically, when Saddam Hussein was thrown out in 2003, so there were coalitions. They literally divided between mostly Shia, because Shia is the dominant one, and then the Kurds. They neglect the Sunnis, because Sunnis was in power before, during the Ba'ath regime ruling and Saddam Hussein.
So now they said it's the time for the Shias to take over, since they're the majority.
So it was like a lot of revenge, and they neglect them. And of course, when Paul Premier came to Iraq, I think he didn't know how to deal with Iraq. So they did a major mistake by taking down the military, taking down the intelligence, taking down the police, all these things. So they have to build it again. Without Sunnis, it was a problem, because all these qualified people were Sunnis. All these high ranks and intelligence and
because
police.
they had run the country for so long.
For so long, and they were the vacuum power. And then it was easy for Iran come in, and then it was easy for the neighbor like Saudis, like other. Iraq became a ground play or football stadium for other players to come and play football, play war in a way, or trying to dominate the area, and as usual. So during that time, Iraq went through a lot of these turmoils, and was peaking around 2013 and 14 during the Arab Spring, where the majority of Sunni went out to the street, as you see in the film as well, and they faced a really hard reaction from the government, and they killed a lot of them in different places where they were demonstrating. So and then ISIS came in.
Right.
So then when ISIS came in, took over the biggest town, Mosul, and then they were advancing.
I want to ask you about that, but first, Nouri said something at one point that he doesn't understand the war. He said that it changes every hour. And I was struck by that. Even Iraqis didn't understand the war that they were in.
Normal people usually don't think about war like the way other people who has interest in a war.
Yeah.
Normal people has no interest in war. They only has interest in a decent life, and where the kids go to school, have food on your table, have a place to sleep. That's what they are usually more concerned about. But when somebody come, like the scene you say is very sad, sad stories. Why, killing two little boys just because they want to terrify the whole area and signaling them that we don't care about these old-fashioned way of thinking, taboos. There are no taboo. This is war, like everybody's targeted and brutally. So when you send that message, of course people don't get the shock of, why, who are they, why they are. So they don't understand. Mostly they don't understand. They may think it's Shia Sunni problem, which I think it's not that, because that's also created afterward. So lots of people don't understand why a neighbor joined, like he's also saying, expressing that. A neighbor becoming, blowing himself. We have video of he know him,
Yeah,
the guy.
he's like, yeah, I know that guy. That was the helper of the suicide.
And he drive him to the hospital because his job is to do the medic thing. And
another thing is that there was the aftermath of a suicide bombing, and as a medic, he was there afterwards, and it was things I had never seen before. It was, families unzipping the body bag and mourning over the victim. It was the washing, the hosing off of the blood off the floor. I mean, why did you want to show that?
It was a lot of discussion during the editing. You see lots of films from Middle East, from the war zones, with lots of sensation footages, kids and blood parts and things. That incident, it was on market. There's some suicide bomber, and then at that time there were like double, triple bombing. First they blow something, and then many people come to look for the beloved, and then the ambulance has come, and then another one. So to maximize the damage. When I saw the raw material, I think I had like a trauma for a long time. I could not get over these images. I never seen these images before, as you said, because that was the moment it break my heart. And that was the thing, we changed the whole film, these are one of those material that made me to change the whole film. From being like from outsider trying to document about the war, like typical this verite film or case-based film, trying to understand, questioning, having expert to a very personal point of view of somebody in the heart of it. And that scene, this is the way lots of Iraqis having it every day. That's the normal life, and they never get used to that. You never get used to go and identify your beloved, and maybe it's one of those there. I found that's an emotional effect which make us feel what they go through, what it means to lose somebody. Not to be sensational, because that not help. It's a lot of these kind of footages you find in YouTube and elsewhere, but that's seen as a sum up of this brutal, absurd brutality.
Yes.
And then in the other side, these civilian people suffering. And it's getting you, it's like it's touched you. It touched me, and it's touched you also. And that's the point of, engaging emotionally to feel those people.
من حتى الكلام الصورة سلسة كله ايش قال الحرب، ايش سوى الحرب، وايش قالوا بيت فلان، وايش قد مات من عندهم، والى غيرها من المسميات اللي ما نقدر نوصفها بحد التعبير. مهيأ مهيأ. وهذا طبعا صوت واحدة من الراجمات اللي جاي تسقط علينا واحنا جاي نصور هذا المشهد. هذا أكبر شاهد على هذا الحدث.
You mentioned this before. ISIS takes over Mosul, the second largest city in Iraq, and there's a shot of him watching the news of this has just happened. What happens after that?
After that, they were advancing. Mosul fall, and the army, the central army, was pulling out from literally town after town. And they pulled out from Diyala, and they pulled out from Jalaula, where Nouri was based. ISIS came closer and closer, and then to a certain point they came with, I remember, like 4 or 5 suicide bombers. They blow themselves in the town, and then all those who were in control, like Peshmerga and some of the other milits, that the Shia milits, so they got panicked, so they left the town. They took over the town. They stayed, ISIS stayed for almost 3 months, and then they pulled them out again. They threw them out later
Of
on.
Nouri's town?
Yeah.
تعال شوف هاي تعرض. الوضع مو طمن. يلا. شنو اللي هي تشوفها؟ رصاصة؟ سارة.
So he left in advance of ISIS, but he's not been able to go back to his home. He's been living in a refugee camp.
Yeah, if you think of Jalaula, like when we have the scene of the hospital, like in 2015 and 16, still the town was dead.
Is that because nobody came back, or
there are no infrastructure, and still the town is one of those conflicted areas. It's still they are not agree who to belong to. Is it belong to the Kurdish or is it belong to the central government? So there are disagreement about that, which also when ISIS came in, and also as a revenge, they blow up all these houses with Sunnis, and Nouri is a Sunni, so they blow his house. I have document. I went there and I see these documentations. It's nothing left, with hundreds of other. So those who staying in the camp, there was some kind of they encouraged them to go back, but they go back to nothing. Like the infrastructure is not there.
It's interesting in the film. He does, as you said, he goes back to his hospital where he worked, and this is the only time in the film we see him crying.
Yes.
He cried over the destruction of that hospital.
Yeah, because that's his habitus. That is where he's belong. This is his universe. You know.
Right.
It was not the house, because the Iraqi believe in they can build somewhere here as long as the family together. But the hospital is where it's,
Yes.
Nouri is a good guy. He's a really good-hearted, because I know him closely. He helped people, he bandaged people. That's why he was a good character to go with him and see those cases. He brought to me lots of cases that without him we would never know about them. Lots of cases we haven't used. Some of them we just use a glimpse of it. So he's a good-hearted person. He's always tried to help. He's always
and in the end, even though after everything he's seen, he was still optimistic, sort of.
I think it's a optimistic end. I think it's in a way, in that setting, that's the best realistic optimism you can get, I think.
Has Nouri seen the film?
He's seen the last, or you say not the last rough cut, but the cut before that, because when the last time I went back in 2016, I needed these pieces, so I haven't been back ever since.
Did he like that, what he saw?
Yeah, but he was disappointed because he was expecting lots of the cases were there, because we follow families, we follow very serious cases, if you think about the old idea. But when he himself became the front figure and the main protagonist in the film, so we have to take away things in order to make space for him to get to know him and all these things. Yeah. So he was like disappointed. Oh, where is this family? What about this family? Why we don't have this? So I tried to make him understand that okay, like we cannot
It's
make a
much
film
more powerful this
5,
way.
6 hours long.
Yeah.
And so he understand in the end. I think he's pleased with the result, and he know like we are campaigning with it, trying to bring the film is bigger than me and bigger than himself, and himself and his family, and representing also those who are, and putting a face to those people who are in the same situation as Nouri, because like there are hundreds of thousands of that, and hopefully we can shed a light over the refugees, over war victims, over unfinished jobs, Iraq, and hopefully we touch some of the feelings, you know.
Yeah, I think you definitely did that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the program.
Thank you to invite me here.
This has been the Mimi Geerges Show. You can see all of our programs on WHUT.org and YouTube. Connect with us on Facebook and Twitter and leave me your comments there. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll join me again next time.
This program was produced by WHUT, Howard University Television, and made possible by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.